some of the things you might be hearing in the background. There's dogs barking, which is far from extraordinary, but they'll be barking more perhaps because there's happy music in the background, mariachis, and I'm here in Tijuana. So you might hear the mariachis. Why are they playing? To celebrate Christmas, the birth of Jesus, that great guy. One of the things that I often ask Christians and religious people in general, including my own family, is will it be heaven knowing that plenty of us who didn't buy into your way of thinking about God based on bad information, we're in hell for that, for eternity? Will it still be heaven? Obviously, it probably will still be heaven because we still have Christmas. The neighbors are playing their mariachi music. Jesus is still smiling down. And right around the corner on the other side, that person was still killed a couple of nights ago. Just killed on the street. Happening a lot here. There's probably somebody dying right now. Is it still Christmas? Is it still Christmas for my kids? They were stolen from me. I ended up homeless. Not going to bore you with the details now. Is it still Christmas for them? My son's birthday. He turned 7 2 days ago. Was it still a birthday? And the New World Order. Is it still going to be wonderful when populations are hugely decreased? Well, that's like asking, is the mother who had the abortion still enjoying her life even though the child is dead? Of course she's still enjoying her life. Is Casey Anthony still enjoying her life even though she killed her child so that she could go to the club? Of course. Are we still enjoying our life here in the United States even though a lot of our products from Walmart, from Nike, from Apple come from China, where every 2 minutes someone commits suicide? Every 2 minutes there's a guy that commits suicide. Then 2 minutes there's a girl that commits suicide. 230,000 suicides a year in China. Divide that into the 31 million seconds of a year. You got one suicide every 2 minutes. Are we still happy? Of course we are. We're as happy as a woman wearing diamonds, even though diamonds necessitate child slavery to mine the diamonds in Africa. Were the United States settlers happy, even though the indigenous people had to go away? They're in heaven now? There goes the music. Of course they were still happy. Were the slave owners still happy, even though the black slaves lived as slaves? Of course they were. A small percentage of white people owned slaves. Were the majority of white people still happy as the miserable 99% who had to compete against the slave labor of the ruling elites, compete against the black slaves? Are their descendants happy now that the South was scapegoated and it was the North against slavery versus the white for slavery? Talking the United States. Of course we are still happy. We ignore that the majority of people weren't ruling elites. The majority of people never owned slaves and were in fact competing against slaves or were slaves themselves. Plenty Irish slaves, Italian slaves, Chinese slaves. But of course we're still happy. Things could be worse. You could be Adam Lanza, the scapegoat of the moment. He's just crazy. Then you find out, oh, his mom married a millionaire. She divorced him after 2 decades, and she gets $250,000 a month, a year, in addition to living in the mansion after the divorce. So maybe her crazy behavior caused Adam Lanza to act out and kill all these kids at the elementary school. Well, no, actually, we found out it was a Mossad operation. The intelligence agencies of Israel actually did it, just like they pulled off 9/11. That's why Building 7, the third building that collapsed for no reason, it was wired with explosives and was supposed to be hit by one of those planes that was taken down. So they said, we'll just pull it anyways. Just like the other ones fell into their own footprint. Are we still happy that we were convinced we need to go in the direction end up with the death of well over 1 million Iraqis, mostly children. Now their groundwater is poisoned, and they're dying exponentially over there from things like cancer due to the poisoned groundwater. Flies. Of course we're still happy. We're the majority of people who are not prisoners in our country, literal prisoners, the 2 million people incarcerated. Were we still happy before the government started cracking down, wanting our guns because of a false flag operation in Connecticut? Sure. We're as happy as everyone else was when my dad was forced to go to Vietnam for the false flag of Gulf of Tonkin. What are we supposed to do, though? You hear people calling out these things. They find them sooner and sooner. Found it a little too late with 9/11. Oh, it was actually, we were getting false flagged into that situation. Faked into that situation. And now the government wants our guns. They set up. One of the ideas is that they killed Adam Lanza, brought him there as a scapegoat, shot the kids. Let's imagine that happened. And that Mossad did 9/11. How does that account for the psychotic mindset of people who think someone killed someone, so I'm going to kill you? In debate, you learn that you can't just say, here's a problem, therefore whatever we want. No, you talk about a problem. Then you establish evidence for the problem. Then you establish a cause. Then you establish the harm. Then you establish the impact on your case. Once you set up a problem or two, then you set out a plan. You say, okay, well, so considering this problem, here's the plan. And the plan is going to solve the problem like this. And we're going to do this. And here's how we're going to do it. And here's how we're going to pay for it. And here's who is going to do it. The agent of action, we called it. And if we do this plan, here are the advantages. And the other person comes in the debate and they say, oh, well, this problem, it's not too much of a problem. Your cause, it's not the right cause. There's not so much of a harm. And then they break down every part of your case and they say, well, your plan doesn't really solve for the problem. Or they say, your agent of action is the wrong person. It should have been this. And this is how you win these fun debates in the college debate circuit. And then you point out disadvantages to their plan. Yeah, you would solve your problem, but you'd create other problems. Meanwhile, the mindset of people is, you know what we'll do? We'll figure out that Mossad pulled off 9/11. And then what? And then you're just going to, therefore, we should all be really, really mad. And what? You can be as mad as my dad. He was forced to fight in Vietnam. Now he's going to remember it the rest of his life. He was a prison guard. He got to kill people. He had to kill people. And then he got out. He got a degree in music from Brigham Young University. He became a pianist, but he can't tolerate teaching people. He's too impatient. I'd say it's the PTSD. He works at a hospital, maintenance. Lives in one room, divorced from my mom. She's moved on. My mom and my dad sought recluse in Mormonism. They just, a mess of a story. Not important. That's the point. Is it? None of this backstory is important to the fact no one really has a plan. All they have is a whole lot of sound and fury signifying nothing. My mom was miserable. She found my dad. My dad was miserable. He had found the Mormon church. They found each other. They had me and my 6 brothers and sisters. I got scapegoated. I eventually left my house. I had kids. They were eventually taken from me. Nobody cares because I'm some loser with 5 kids from 3 different women. I was driven away from my children because 2 of the 3 women I had children with, their mothers were crazy as hell towards me and the woman. Nobody wants to hear that blame the woman. Although if you were to blame the actions of the baby's mothers, you would realize that 2 of the 3 women who were the mothers of the women that I had children with, they were molested by their fathers. But you can't even get that far to the molested woman because she's a victim no matter what she does, even if she's doing things that only a molested person would do. So what is the plan? Well, the plan is to get mad at Mossad for doing 9/11. The plan is to get mad at Adam Lanza for shooting up those innocent children. The plan is to be mad at people who want to keep guns. The plan is to scapegoat Obama because he's a Muslim or because he wants to take your guns. The plan is to blame Jews for being in control of the banking system or something. None of this stuff works. None of this control, like they're in control of the media or these people are in control of this. And typically you'll find, oh, same people are in control of the media and the banking. Okay, Jews. Like I said in another video, so what? What now? The fact that somebody else is in charge of something and they're making bad plays, that doesn't change anything about what you are supposed to do. You're supposed to act appropriately regardless who's doing what. Again, with the whole idea of people saying Jews run the world and that's enough, like we've established that, now let's, like, what, let's go Hitler on people. No, that's not going to work. That's about as effective. The argument that I compared to the Jews run stuff is here in the United States when certain foolish black activists, slave descendants, they say, sure, there's a lot of crime in black neighborhoods, but the government or someone puts alcohol and guns here. Therefore, we're compelled to drink and shoot. No. It's simply a matter of personal responsibility. What do you do when people take away your personal responsibility? For example, to defend yourself. When they try to take away your Second Amendment, well, you use the Second Amendment to not let them. If they try to take away your neighbor's rights, well, you realize that at least, I mean, plenty of people are like, well, at least it's not happening to me. You still, for the sake of, well, if I let that little fire go, it'll just get out of control. The idea you can't even walk up and see what a cop is doing. Why are you arresting this person? Why are you being aggressive? Just step away. Go over here. Okay, cops, we're just going to go in this direction. The sheep and cowardice mentality is the problem. It's not that George Bush lied about 9/11 because Congress had the same information and gave the same facts. We should go and end up with the deaths of 1 million Iraqis. That's not the problem. The problem isn't, oh, we put them in the wrong direction. Let's go kill a bunch of people in Afghanistan and commit what is, by our Department of Defense's definition, we committed terrorism against Afghanistan. Well, but we did it to get Osama bin Laden. He's really bad. This is the problem. Hypocrisy is the problem. But it's worked for so long. Things like divine right and peasants knowing their place. There's too much communication now. People can too readily see false flag operations, for example. This false flag operation was caught quick. I still went in the direction of talking about the public response shaming Adam Lanza, even though it was caught very quick that, oh, this is actually a false flag operation for the purpose of disarming the United States. Nevertheless, if Adam Lanza is just a footnote in your mind, then let him take your guns. Why should I care about you? Why should anyone care about you or 230,000 of you if you're a Chinese person committing suicide any given year? Why should anyone care about any individual person if Adam Lanza is just a clue? You know what? Adam Lanza died, and it's interesting. It's like that CSI stuff. People are like, no, Adam Lanza. What did his death? That was interesting. Like Adam Lanza's not a person. No, he died, and I think that someone is trying to mislead us with his death. Like he doesn't matter. If you're just going to step right past that, start playing your mariachi music in the background, making these dogs bark. Someone died right around the corner. There's no mourning. There's no we need to come together. No. That mourning and coming together stuff only happens for exaggerated, damn near false flag operations of things like the Trayvon Martin situation, where we all need to come together and agree that black people are the victim and we're going to humor them and pretend like that will solve anything. This is the problem. The idea that Occupy movements finally recognize, they recognize, oh, the government's trying to treat us bad and the ruling elites control banking, and black people that have been, and poor people in general are over here saying like, yeah, this has been going on for a long time. This is the whole reason you were the middle class in the first place, was corrupt banking. So now you middle class want to say, they're going to wipe out the middle class and make us like that crocodile pit that we didn't care how they got, how they were. We just wanted to do whatever we could to not be one of those poor people, to not end up in jail. Whatever, good luck, here, you did it to yourself, get a job, pick yourself up. That kind of apathy, just like Malcolm X said, returning to roost. And worse than just not caring about that person who ended up as the poor class, and now the middle class is falling apart. The poor class wouldn't be so bad if you had cared. But you set up a system, those of you who are apathetic enough to the plight of others. Play your mariachi music, make the dog bark, while that person died around the corner. You set up the system now, where if you're not middle class, you are in this crocodile pit. But now let's have an Occupy movement where we change the world so that we don't have to end up like them. Well, no, that's not true, because there were a lot of poor people mixed in with the middle class people. Doesn't matter, those poor people, they bounce from place to place anyways. That was a middle class thing, hoping to not be tossed really into those poor people. One example I'll give is I was at the 99%, we are the 99% rallies, Occupy San Diego. They're doing the news thing, reporting, and one of the things we got, had the cameraman with me, and there was this attractive couple walking to get into this car. It said, "We are the 99%. It was a Mercedes SUV. They waved to us because we had the camera. They drove off right across the street. Bunch of homeless people. Went over, interviewed them. Some of them been homeless for decades. We're the 99%. You're going to wipe out the middle class. We are the job creators, is what the middle class will say. You know, those rich people think they're the job creators. Huh, we are the middle class. Who should care about you, realistically? Now, I know mythology pushes us in the direction of thinking, well, no, this is what works. And no. If everyone plays along, the stock market works. If everyone plays along, then the middle class is the, what do they call it? The driver of the economy. If everyone plays along. Otherwise, the driver of the economy could be the 2 million people scapegoated and tossed away for whatever. Nonviolent drug offenders, pocket full of weed. Well, that was a felony where you're from. 3 strikes you're out, like baseball. Why should anyone give a fuck about you losing your middle class status, or your child being put in a false flag operation, going and fighting in Iraq because of lies the government told them? If you don't care that some young guy or girl is in jail for life because of 3 strikes, you're out, like baseball. That is insane. The idea of turning your back to these kind of things. The idea of people liking my dad sometimes because he was handsome. Some would say he still is. But he's just, he's a grouchy kind of guy. Yeah, he was forced to fight in Vietnam, and he still has problems from that. But we don't have time. We don't have time to consider that this video, 18 minutes in, 18 divided by 2, 9. 9 Chinese people have committed suicide since I started this video, speaking statistically. Who gives a fuck? We need iPads. We need Walmart. We need American flags that say made in China. Go ahead. Why am I even homeless? Why did I lose my kids? Why do I have food stamps? Why am I on welfare? My wife worked for Intuit. They make Quicken and a lot of other things. After a couple of years of her service, they just gave her job to India. And by gave her job, I mean they brought in Indians and she trained them how to do her job so that it could be outsourced to India. My wife, the job previous to that, she was fired for being pregnant. She was fired from American Greetings. It's like Hallmark. I was trying, and she was just a mess at that point. Her mom wasn't helping her because her mom is a mess from having been molested by her dad when she was a kid. So she's not helping. I'm the bad guy. My wife is fired for being pregnant, and I was trying to get her to sue the American Greetings because those people would settle because most of their clientele are middle-aged women who would not stand for a woman being fired for being pregnant. She was fired for being pregnant. So much stress on my wife, my ex-wife, that she almost died from the pregnancy. Pregnancy-induced hypertension, dog going crazy because of the mariachi. Meanwhile, that family is mourning their dead relative. She was fired for being pregnant, pregnancy-induced hypertension. She almost died. My daughter almost died. My daughter was born 3 months early, 1 pound, 12 ounces she weighed. And my wife and I got together. She got back on her feet. I take care of my kids. My wife takes this new job. It's just given away. She's devastated. She puts us on welfare. She takes up drinking. Everything falls apart for me and her. We break up. By default, she gets the kids. It's a long story, one that I usually blame her for, but this is the whole story. I mean, this is a fuller version of the story. Because of giving the job away and all the stress she was put on, the fact that she didn't have enough money to have the legal recourse to sue for being fired for being pregnant, she's just some person. If you heard her story, you would pity her, especially if stringed instruments were going in the background. You would pity her for a good 5 minutes before you wandered off somewhere to laugh. This is the reason why Jews or white people or whoever can sneak under the tent, create false flags, rush you in some direction. Because you can't even stay focused long enough to even hear someone's story before you're like, wait, so what is the point of this? Oh gosh, I need to laugh or cry. There needs to be stringed instruments playing. I don't get this. I'm in Tijuana right now. Fireworks going off for Jesus. I'm in Tijuana, homeless, separated from my kids. My son's birthday was 2 days ago. Does not matter. Some people feeling bad. Some people can relate. But it doesn't matter. Adam Lanza is dead now. He doesn't matter. He was a bad guy. Well, 16 years ago, he was 5. So the bad guy was born 20 so years ago. He was a 5-year-old, then he just died. Okay, good. Problem solved then. No, because the problem is the apathy. The problem is the pretending that you're exceptionally poor off. The problem is pretending that the status quo works. Seeing someone else being treated unfairly and say, well, at least it's not me, or, well, they probably deserve it, because, why else would it happen to them? I use my example not for pity. I mentioned in another video, if I looked for pity, if I required pity, I'd be dead by now. People do not pity you as a homeless 30-year-old white man, all the privilege I have. 5 children, 3 different women? Get out of here. Oh yeah, but let me elaborately tell you how 2 of the 3 mothers were raised by women who were molested by their fathers for extended periods. Well, we can't even get into that because we're too much like, okay, so who's to blame? Should I give you my dollar as I walk past to go and buy jewelry facilitating child slavery, or buy Chinese products facilitating a horrible atmosphere where 200,000 Chinese people commit suicide every year? I don't know, this is boring. I'm saying a lot of the same stuff. All I'm telling you is that this is a brief history of false flags, tyranny, and struggle. Imagine you're a Polish person. I'm just free associating certain things that I think are part of this topic and that I've been thinking of these the last couple of days. Imagine you're a Polish person and that just a couple of years ago, a huge majority of the people that matter, of the higher ranking people, are dead on a plane. They crashed their plane. You can look it up. A lot of important people from Poland died. Doesn't matter. It was actually Central Intelligence, probably of our country somewhere. They just offed them. Then put their carcasses on a plane, flew it into the ground, problem solved. But imagine, that's nothing. A Polish person could immigrate here with all that stress on their back, and they're going to run into a slave descendant African from the United States who thinks slavery is a thing that happens from whites to blacks in the continental United States. Imagine how divided and conquered that is. Talk about the tyranny. There is no tyranny. There's just a whole lot of complicity in the idea of us versus them. It's fine. Be nationalistic, be racist, be self-centered in that way where you would gladly have an iPad, even if it causes a handful of Chinese people to kill themselves out of misery. But that's the problem. So all of these adorable music-laden videos I see where they break down the Adam Lanza situation, like it was actually a false flag, and it was Mossad again, just like they destroyed They did 9/11 to trick us into being insane and going into and allowing the death of 1 million Iraqis. They tricked us. And all these people, it's a false flag operation to take our guns and to scapegoat the liberty movement is another one I saw. Yeah, okay, all this elaborateness. You're never going to touch the core issue of apathy, of the self-righteous notion that no, I got it all figured out. It was a false flag. We should have never been in Iraq. George Bush is a dummy. No, Barack Obama's even worse. He's the one. What? Who teaches you to heroify your military? Not to understand them, just to say, okay, sometimes we gotta fight wars. Okay, let's get you back here and let's detox you from this war. No, they're heroes. Career military people. Those are your heroes. Like I mentioned before, if Adam Lanza was a gay sniper and he died, the Westboro Baptist Church would have protested his funeral because he's gay. And people would have said, let's kill these Westboro people. But since he wasn't gay and he wasn't a sniper for the United States, he just killed a bunch of kids. Hey, he killed the wrong people. He's not a hero. He's the bad guy. Might makes right. The ends justify the means. History is told by the winners. You know what happens when too much history is told by the winners and just made up for whatever? Like the idea that Lincoln freed the slaves or that the Civil War was about slavery here in the United States, for example. You know what happens eventually? Eventually you can't learn from history and you just repeat it. They say that people who can't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. But what if when history being told by the winners is just a bunch of mythology to get you doing something you never should have done? What if it's the thing that convinces you to obey the perils of obedience? This thing right here, the perils of obedience. Stanley Milgram did a torture experiment where he told these two people, okay, you're going to torture this person. No. He said, you're going to test this person, and it's just about memory. And if they get it wrong, just shock them. This person is actually an actor. And so, okay, so go over there, and then if they get it wrong, shock them. And then progressively, they're shocking them harder and harder and harder. And then this person says, okay, I give up. This is an actor. I give up. And then this person says, oh, he gives up. And I say, oh, no, you have to keep shocking them because it's for the experiment. Oh, okay. And then eventually, this person thinks he's torturing this person. That's the Milgram experiment, so you can look that up. The Perils of Obedience is what Stanley Milgram wrote about the experiment. And he showed that regular people put in extraordinary situations were going to act extraordinarily. He was called as an expert witness in the Nuremberg Nazi trials to humanize the Nazis. Plenty of people said to defend the Nazis. No, to humanize them. No, they're not some crazy, especially evil people. They're actually humans. Put in an extraordinary situation, they act extraordinarily. That doesn't defend what they did. But the perils of obedience is psychopathically thinking, well, you know what? The ends justify the means, and the history can be told by the winners. Eventually you can't learn from history. You would never want to sit in a room with my dad and hear his perspective on the Vietnam War. I've never even heard it. I just know he was forced to go to Vietnam, that he is more or less a mess because of it, and that Vietnam was based on a false flag operation, the Gulf of Tonkin. 10 million Chinese people died in World War II. You didn't know that because Chinese people aren't Jewish. And you watch TV, and Jewish suffering is far worse than Chinese suffering. Not that it's a race, but Jewish pity is winning. And this is not about Jewish. If it were about Jewish, then we'd all have to give up. There are laws against doubting any aspect of the Holocaust. Anti-Semitic is a whole separate word that's worse than racism or sexism. It's a separate thing, anti-Semitic, which has come to mean anti-Jew, religious or not, when there's a whole lot of Semitic people, not even going to go into it, but a lot of Semitic people whose suffering you wouldn't care about. Jews are not the only Semitic people. Nevertheless, you know whose suffering is terrible and whose suffering, I never heard that Chinese were even killed at all in World War II, let alone that they were killed more so than any other people except the Russians. Well, the Russians were bad anyways. Oh no, wait, the Russians were our teammates until a couple of a decade or so later. You didn't hear these things. Go to a romantic comedy. You can see men being tortured, humiliated, hurt in a romantic comedy. See women getting pity for violence against women. Find out that men suffer violence far more. Find out that the women who are so wonderful, they are violent towards children more than men are violent towards women. But you can't do anything with it because you don't have the problem and the harm and the cause and what to do, the plan, what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, what it's going to cost, who's going to do it, where the advantage is. You don't have any of that. You just have, I'm mad at this. Now I'm mad at that. Who's the person who should have no rights, who should be in Guantanamo Bay now? Who's the person who should suffer torture so that we can find that bad guy? Torture the fuck out of all these people. That way maybe one of them will know something. A lot of them won't know, so we'll just be torturing people who don't know. But still, we need to find this bad person by torturing people, by destroying whole cities, to find this bad person. It's like a football game. Hurt whoever you can, overpower them, but protect that ball. Find that bad guy. Kill whoever you need to. Snipers take headshots. 2 of my 5 kids now are being raised by their stepdad. He was a former sniper. He shot people in the head just because he was told to. Now he's in pain all his life. Doesn't matter. He's a hero. He shot people in the head as randomly as he could have picked for himself. They're like, shoot that guy in the head. Okay, shoot him in the head. Protect that ball. We're going to find these bad guys, and we're going to do it by shooting people in the head. What would he know? How would he suddenly be like, no, actually, I had a fantastic growing up in childhood. That's why I ended up a sniper. No, everything's great. No. These people are forced in the direction of, well, I can redeem myself to a culture that hates me by shooting people in the head or doing some other militaristic thing and be a hero. But history is told by the winners. And you're going to be doomed to repeat it. It was just a mythology. And the music continues, and the mourning continues. That's it. Go back to sleep.